Hey, what's up, race fans? Steve here with your 2014 Week 4 NASCAR chat, and not a whole lot to go over from Las Vegas. Basically, Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have won that race if he had a thumbnail of fuel left in that tank, but that's the risk you take when you deal with fuel strategy. That's the bed that they made, Steve Letarte and Dale Earnhardt Jr., and it almost worked out. Coming off of turn 2, I thought it was going into turn 2, when Waltrip really got into it for that final little showdown on the last lap, I was convinced that he had saved enough that he was going to make it to the finish, and then just out of turn 2, you start to sputter. Brad shoot by, and you knew exactly what happened. Earnhardt trying to jiggle it a little bit to get some of that last little bit of fuel jumped up into the intake, but didn't work. Held on for second, and in previous years, that might have been a huge setback for Junior. If he didn't get that win at Daytona, that would have been something that maybe set off a chain reaction and crushed his spirit a little bit. But you saw the difference right away after the race, and that's the difference this year in general, and there's something to look forward to for Junior Nation. They used it as a positive. They came in second. They had a fantastic week. I think their average finish for the first 3 races is 1.67, insane for Junior, and they used it as something they're going to be able to build off of, since they're bringing great cars out of the hauler every single week, and every week it seems like Junior has the confidence, no matter where they go, to get a victory. And you saw it. Even though they were disappointed, they ran out of gas, they could have notched another victory. They know they're in the chase. They were able to take a chance on it. They were able to maybe get some bonus points, but they still came away with a second place, and they're going to build off it, and it's going to be confidence-inspiring instead of crushing, where a defeat like that might have been in previous years for Dale Earnhardt Jr. So that was good, but you knew he was going to win. I mean, if he held on to fuel, you could see that when he was trying to conserve fuel, Keselowski was able to get it within a third of a second, but whenever they got on the radio and said, hey, listen, you got what you got, race it out, he was able to build that back up to 2/3 of a second within a lap or so, or something like that. So you knew he had the best car out there at the time between the two, and he would have won it going away. He had, if it didn't have to save fuel like that, and then, of course, didn't run out of fuel on the last lap. Qualifying changes. We called for it last week. NASCAR finally implemented it, and just in time, by the way. If you had went to Bristol with a situation like you had at Las Vegas and Phoenix, where people would have to go around the bottom of the track doing cool-down laps between qualifying runs, would have had a problem there. I mean, Bristol, not a lot of room, short track. You'd have some issues there. If someone made any sort of mistake on their hot run, you'd have guys running into each other, at very slow speeds down around the bottom of the track, and guys trying to get up for qualifying on the top half of the track. You wouldn't have good qualifying runs. You wouldn't have guys getting good runs out there, clean runs to put down their best times, and that's not what you want. You want the excitement from knockout qualifying, but you don't want it so guys can't get good runs. You want them to get at least one good run in there, put a time down that they could be proud of, and it's indicative of what their car is. Because at the end of the day, even though knockout qualifying is exciting, you still would like the best cars to be up towards the front, and there to be some sort of merit to it. So that's what we got, I think, with the cool-down machines allowed to be used and the elimination of those cool-down laps. Now, at least, even though it's congested for Bristol and other short tracks, as it's going to be throughout the year for knockout qualifying, you still give teams a fighting chance to put down a good lap and hopefully have a good starting position. So let's talk about Bristol, because this is interesting now. With the new chase setup, you're going to have situations where guys are going to start circling dates on the calendar. And one of those guys, and a few of those guys circling short tracks on the calendar, are going to be Jeff Gordon, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, even Dale Earnhardt Jr., Denny Hamlin. These are guys who are very good. They know how to be aggressive, but they also know how to be patient. That's why restrictor plate races is kind of the same deal. You got to be patient. You got to hold that aggression. And then at the end, you got to know how to get towards the front and win the race. And so that's why I think that these guys, these experienced drivers, are especially good at short track racing. And with so many teams this year being great on mile-and-a-half tracks and bigger tracks, and it being such a crapshoot week to week on who's going to be at the front, to have those teams that are highlighting short track racing. I think it's especially important this week for Gordon. He's starting 6th. It's so vital for that team not to be in a position they've been in the past couple of years where they have to race their way in, where the pressure starts to mount at Richmond, because so many things can go wrong on these cars. So you really can't put yourself in a spot where you have to win a race coming down to the last 2 or 3 of the regular season. So it's good for him to get a race win get out of the way right away. And a lot of teams, you notice, as we start to get, closer to Texas and those things, if there's a lot of different winners of races, we've had 3 races so far, we've had 3 different winners. If there's a situation where a lot of different guys are winning races, by the time you get to it's going to start getting late early, where guys are going to realize and teams are going to realize that they're not going to be able to get in on points because there's not going to be so many free spots open for points because of a multiple race winners. So if only 8 guys win races, you have those other 8 spots open for points. If a lot of different guys are winning races, you're going to see teams realize, hey, listen, we're not going to be able to get in on consistency on points. We need to go get wins. And so as you start getting closer to Richmond and over the summer, you're going to see a lot of desperation from guys that don't have that win. And I think it starts at the short track for those guys who know that this is perhaps their best chance at this stage in their career. I look for Gordon and I look for Kurt Busch this week to post their strongest positions and their strongest runs of the year. Should be a good race as always. Should be a lot of fun, a lot of banging, a lot of bumping, a lot of tempers flaring. It should be definitely a fun race. So you guys enjoy it. Until next week, enjoy the race. Enjoy that Bristol fun, the Bristol Bowl.
At your door. Right side's clear. Ready to go. Got a car behind. Car in line with you. Car tucked in behind you. Clear on the outside. 2 to go. Okay, let's use that clean air. Keep digging. What we work for, you got it. Fight's all clear, bud.